Okay, good morning, folks. A wee Davy short. What brings Davy to your screens a day? Well, we'll get to that in a minute, okay. So, Facebook's sorted out. What brings me to your screens a day? Well, let's start by getting this sorted right. Indie truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is 6 degrees, overcast. That's the weather for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather's like where you are, look out your rain bloody windy. What brings Davy to your screens a day? Well, as the title of the video tells you, it's time to be scared of the Westminster establishment and its right-wing press associates, the right-wing media. And I sincerely mean this. Now, as you know, Sunak gave a speech, I think it's Thursday evening, an impromptu speech. And if you haven't heard that, I'm going to play the essence of it. And it was fucking petrifying. Petrifying. And I mean that sincerely. So I'm going to put it up. This is for the Guardian News, and they've edited it down to a couple of minutes. We'll watch it, and then we'll go through it, and we'll discuss what's scary about it. Okay. So I'll put a video up and let it rip. And then we'll play it again, and I'll stop and I'll talk about things. Let's hope you can see this okay, folks. I'm sorry that the ads will come up. I should have. I'll take it down to I get by the ads, folks, because I really don't particularly want to put the ads up. So, no, good, no ads. Let's get this up and get it underway.
In months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality. What started as protests on our street has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence. Jewish children fearful to wear their school uniform lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with. Now our democracy itself is a target. Council meetings and local events have been stormed. MPs do not feel safe in their homes. Long-standing parliamentary conventions have been upended because of safety concerns. And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP. There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. Since October the 7th, there have been those trying to take advantage of the very human angst that we all feel about the terrible suffering that war brings to the innocent, to women and children, to advance a divisive, hateful ideological agenda. Yes, you can march and protest with passion. You can demand the protection of civilian life. But no, you cannot call for violent jihad. And I want to speak directly to those who choose to continue to protest. Don't let the extremists hijack your marches. You have a chance in the coming weeks to show that you can protest decently, peacefully, and with empathy for your fellow citizens. Let us prove these extremists wrong and show them that even when we disagree, we will never be disunited from our common values of decency and respect. This week, I've met with senior police officers and made clear it is the public's expectation that they will not merely manage these protests, but police them. And I say this to the police: we will back you when you take action.
Right. Absolutely excruciating stuff. But we're going to have to go through it again because I'm going to stop it and start it and stop it and start it. and ask questions of what he's saying. And it's the questions that the media, the mainstream media, are no asking. And there's also some things that he says here which don't make any sense to me in a secular society. It doesn't make sense in Scotland that we'll get to that, but anyway, here we go. I'm going to make you suffer it again.
In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality.
Where's the evidence? Where is the evidence of this shocking disruption and criminality? There's been protests going on for months. Months. You get more arrests at your average football match than you get at a Stop the Genocide protest. This anti-Israel protest piss being peddled by this monkey and the press. It's outrageous. But think about what you just said there. A shocking rise in extremism and criminality. Where's the fucking evidence? Where is the evidence? Where's the evidence for Wee Anderson that Sadiq Khan has handed London out to extremists? Where's Braverman's evidence that these marches and protest at a genocide going on in Gaza? Where is the evidence that they're hate marches? Evidence is what the press is not asking for here. And that's why social media is having to call this shit out. That's why I'm having to give up a part of my Saturday to call this piss out and tell you that this stuff is scary. Let's move on.
What started as protests on our street has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence.
Once again, where is the evidence?
Jewish children fearful to wear their school uniform lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with.
Once again, evidence, but this one about Jewish school children frightened to wear their school uniforms. I thought we lived in a secular state. It annoys me that here in Scotland we have Catholic and Protestant schools. It's supposed to be a secular state. Religion shouldn't come into education. Shouldn't come into public discourse whatsoever, actually. It's a private issue for citizens. But Jewish children frightened to put on school uniforms. How the fuck would you know what the badge of the school uniform is for 200-300 years away? Well, simple, the reason why you know there were Jewish children going to Jewish schools is because they're all concentrated in the one part of London. I went and had a look. I'll put a map up at the end of the programme. We'll talk more about it. But what you've got to say to yourself is, who the hell would know what school kids are going to? The uniform's a uniform, there's loads of them. And they all look the bloody same here. They're either grey and black, red and black. That's generally what they're here. I don't know how it is in England. But this idea that children are frightened, where's the evidence once again? And Muslim women being attacked in the street, where's the bloody evidence? Present us some statistics. Where's the press asking for the evidence before they print the right-wing pish?
Now our democracy itself is a target.
Yep, our democracy is a target, and it's a target by your right-wing government.
Council meet events have been stormed.
That's generally where you hold peaceful protests. Do you not get the fucking concept of democracy, you monster?
MPs do not feel safe in their homes.
I'm going to phone my MP and ask if she feels safe in her home. I suggest the rest of you do as well. I've seen no evidence that MPs are frightened in their homes. None. There was one story of a protest outside an MP's home, and I myself called it out and said that's nowhere to protest. But MPs feeling frightened in their homes.
Long-standing parliamentary conventions have been upended because of safety concerns.
Safety concerns you and your right-wing press have created out of fucking thin air. Where is the evidence, Mr. Sunak? Present us, the people, with evidence. That's what democracy is about. You want to make a claim and clamp down on our freedoms, provide the evidence to say it's necessary.
And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah.
Galloway's many things. Many things. He doesn't dismiss what happened on October 7th. What he did was give it context and say that people who are opposed are entitled to resist. And that's true. Under international law, they're entitled to resist. So what Mr. Galloway did was give it a bit of context. Now, I'm no fan of Gorgeous Georges. I think the man's an opportunist, and I think he's a snake oil salesman. But he doesn't endorse what happened on October 7th. This is the other lie being perpetrated here. These people would like you to think that this whole thing started on October 7th. No, it didn't. Started in 1967 with the illegal occupation of Palestine.
And is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP.
I don't know whether Galloway's endorsed by Nick Griffin or no. But I would find that hard to believe if Nick Griffin is a racist. Because one thing we can say about George is he stood up against the Iraq war, he stood up against what was going on in Syria. Might not agree with him, but George isn't following the narrative, he looks for evidence.
There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart.
Yes, and they're in Westminster. But it's no us you're trying to tear apart, because here in Scotland, this piss that you are peddling to the people of England just isn't washing. The reason it isn't washing is because 4 of the major political parties here in Scotland have been calling for a ceasefire since about day 3 of Israel's actions. See what you want about Slab being a branch office, and it is. That branch office has been calling for a ceasefire. Same as the SNP, same as the Lib Dems, same as the Greens. The only ones in Scotland who are no pushing for a ceasefire are the Tories. But they have links. They have links to the industrial military complex here, which is a huge industry in the UK. But this is pretty scary so far.
Since October the 7th, there have been those trying to take advantage of the very human angst that we all feel about the terrible suffering that war brings to the innocent, to women and children.
Angst. This guy's a father, a daughter. I think it's 2 or 3 daughters. Angst. 12,000 children dead. 8,000 women dead. More actually, because we don't know what's under the rubble. Angst. The angst that he's talking about is the angst of the state, as it is out of sync with the population, with over 70% of the population UK-wide, and probably more here in Scotland, in support of and demanding a ceasefire. On the scuppered SNP motion on a ceasefire 2 weeks ago, this man was in the press saying it wasn't time for a ceasefire.
To advance a divisive, hateful ideological agenda. Yes, you can march and protest with passion. You can demand the protection of civilian life. But no, you cannot call for violent jihad.
Now, I've watched many of these protests right round the world. There's one going on in Glasgow right now, probably. And I have never, ever, in any of these protests, seen anybody calling for violent jihad. Unless the protests were in the Middle East. But here we've got people from all communities. The Jewish community, the Muslim community, the Hindu community, the Sikh community, the Christian community, the atheist community, the agnostic community, the trans community, everybody peacefully protesting for an end to a slaughter. This is frightening, folks. These people are setting a narrative to divide people. And that'll give them what's coming next, the power to. And this is what he's talking about next.
And I want to speak directly to those who choose to continue to protest. Don't let the extremists hijack your marches. You have a chance in the coming weeks to show that you can protest decently, peacefully, and with empathy for your fellow citizens. Let us prove these extremists wrong.
Once again, where's the proof of extremism at these peace protests, at these anti-genocide protests, or as they like to have it, a pro-Palestinian or anti-Israeli protest they're describing them as. But they'll know.
Wrong, and show them that even when we disagree, we will never be disunited from our common values of decency and respect.
I didn't know decency and respect was a common value here in the UK. Disrespect, ripping the piss out your neighbour and try to get ahead is the only common value here in the UK that I can see.
This week, I've met with senior police officers and made clear it is the public's expectation that they will not merely manage these protests, but police them.
The public's expectation that they will not only manage these protests, but police them. The leash is off. Anybody holding a poster or anything like that the police think can be construed as anti-Semitic, then you're in the poking. We're going to see the police disrupt these protests and violence erupt because the police are disrupting these protests. We're being set up here. This is scary stuff.
And I say this to the police: we will back you when you take action.
And that's the leash off. That's the leash off. Fortunately, the police so far have said, we're not judging, we're just managing. But, folks, this is some of the scariest stuff I've ever heard. And what we're seeing in the press and on the right-wing glory channels and even in the mainstream is scary. There is no evidence for a single thing that he has said. None. No evidence of protests being hijacked by extremists. No evidence that there is dark extremist influence in our society any more than there's ever been. And most of the dark extremist influence in our societies in Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland are actually right-wing nutters. They're no the Muslim community. They're no the Jewish community. And why I don't get it. Why are these so-called Muslim communities? Why are they so-called Jewish communities? Have they ghettoised things in England? Here they're just a community. This is scary stuff, folks. And a certain section of our society is being demonised, and they're being used as a weapon to allow these people to introduce a police state. And they're being aided and abetted by the right-wing media. The big question you've got to be asked of what he said was, where is your evidence? I've spoken about this, about MPs and threats and inboxes. They've had them for years. They used to get them in letters when I was a kid. They would generally just dismiss them because it would be one or two out of a pile of hundreds. The general MP didn't see them. The researcher did. If the researcher thought it was serious, they go to the police. If they didn't, it went in the bin. And it's the same with emails now. We all communicate with our politicians via email. Yep, they'll get the odd nutter making a threat. Don't think it's serious? Delete email. Think it's serious? Forward to the police. Nothing's changed. Except for the rhetoric. This idea that they've had to change procedures and all that in Westminster. Well, you know, if you're going to go against the will of the people are going to take action against you. And that's what these people are frightened of. They're frightened of these protests. They're frightened of the fact that the public opinion is being clearly expressed on the streets and in the polls, but these people are not listening to the public. It doesn't suit their agenda. And the establishment's getting frightened. Take George Galloway, for instance. I'm no fan, but he was fairly elected. He was fairly elected. But let us carry on about his supporters intimidating people and things like that, and other candidates. Where's the evidence? The presiding officer at the by-election said it was a fair contest. It wasn't a fair contest to them. Held the vote again. This is really scary, folks. Anyway, that's what brings me to your screen today. Police state coming down that road. Will it spill over into Scotland? I doubt it. And I doubt it for the reasons I've stated. 4 out of the 5 political parties here have, since the Offsky, supported a ceasefire. So, no, we don't have the same rhetoric here in Scotland. You will get it printed in the Looney Express and things like that, but nobody's paying any attention to them. You know, some of the YouTubers have got much better coverage than the newspapers here in Scotland. But folks, it's time to start asking for evidence here. This man speaks for your elected representatives. Ask your elected representatives yourself. Ask them yourself. This is scary. This is horrifying. Because there's no evidence for anything he said. And the bit at the end about the public expects, he doesn't know anything about what the public expects. Because if he knew anything about what the public expects, he'd be paying attention to the protesters and polls that say 70% of the people in England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland want a ceasefire. They want Israel, the Israeli state, held to account. Not the people, not the Jewish people. The Jewish people are subject to the doctrine of their government, the same way as we seem to be subject to the doctrine of 30 and 14 years of this right-wing nut jobs. These right-wing nut jobs. But the press really needs to get a look at itself here. Nobody's calling these people out. Nobody called Lindsay Hoyle out when he sent the dog whistle out and all. The Speaker of the House of Commons. First he started out with, Section 31's out of date, so I've decided to change the procedure. I did it to protect you from extremists. Well, this is dangerous, folks. And it's especially dangerous for people in England. Circumstances are different here in Scotland. I can't speak for Wales. I think the Welsh Senate did pass a motion for a ceasefire. So I imagine the problems are probably not the same in Wales either. But what we do know here is that the rhetoric coming out of that post in that road and the dog whistles to split the English society over an election. You know, one thing we Anderson did tell us that was honest, and that was they have got nothing left to fight the next election on, so it'll be in culture wars. And they are going to split society to try and marshal them into one team or the other at a general election. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But nobody's asking the right questions. Where is the press calling this stuff out? Where is the evidence of these marches screaming for a jihad? Where is the evidence of these marches being extreme? Since when? What sort of world do we live in when calling for the end of the slaughter of a people and an open prison become extreme? When did that view become extreme? And when expecting our politicians to stand up and say, no, actually, Israel, chuck it. We're not having this. When did that become an extreme view? Expecting our politicians to act on the will of the people on this issue. When did that become extreme? Anyway, folks, I just had to say that was scary. It scared the shite out of me. I would take a wee grip of that video or go and get the full 17-minute speech. England is just taking the leash off of police. Expect peaceful protests to be disrupted. Have a nice day.